Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we are going to be learning how to make this gathered skirt with a side zipper slit. So if you're interested in learning how to make this stylish skirt, keep watching and let's get started. I made use of an Ankara print fabric and the amount of this fabric is 2.5 yards. For a plus size person, you should use 3 yards. For the slit zipper, I made use of an invisible zip and the length is 24 inches. While for the back piece of the skirt, I made use of the short invisible zipper. To know the width of the fabric you need for both the front piece and back piece of your skirt, you need to make some calculations. My waist circumference is 28 inches and because of the gathers, I multiplied it by 3 inches and that would be 84 inches. Now to get the width of the front piece of my skirt, I divided this 48 inches into 2 and I had 42 inches. I'm left with extra 42 inches. The other 42 inches would be for the width of the back piece for the skirt. Alright, so for the front piece, the width of the fabric is 42 inches. To mark my desired skirt length, I folded the front piece into 2 equally. And since I would be attaching a waistband of 2 inches in length, I subtracted 2 inches from the top of the waistline. So the skirt is very long and when I measured the skirt length, it was 45 inches for me. So I added extra 2 inches allowance to the hem, which made it 47 inches. So basically, I'm using the entire length of the Ankara fabric. Now I'm going to place this on my actual fabric again to cut out the back piece, making sure it's the same shape and size. So I've cut out the back piece and this is how it should be. Just exactly the same way it is for the front piece. Alright, now let's focus on just the front piece for now. So this is the front piece of my skirt and it's folded into 2. I went ahead to notch the center of the front piece. Now I'll open this up. The next step is on how to make the side slit. To do this, I would place my tape from the center point I notched to this end. And here I have 21 inches. I folded my tape into 2 to mark the midpoint. Now from this point I marked, I'm going to fold my fabric into 2. After it has been folded properly, I adjusted the fabric to the bottom to slit the fold. After slitting, I placed the measuring tape from the waistline to mark 9 inches. I'll take the front piece to the sewing machine to make a straight stitch directly on this line. After stitching, you would notice that there will be an opening from that point down to the bottom of the skirt, which would be the slit by the side of the front piece. Alright, the next step is on how to attach the zipper. So here I'll be working with the longest zipper. To attach the zipper, I opened up the seam allowance on this side, then raised the smaller size of the front piece. Now take note that the zipper head would be at the bottom of the skirt, while the zipper stopper on this side will be at the top of the slit opening. Now I flipped the zipper to the wrong side, then placed it 1 inch above the stitch. Now I would stitch the edges of the zipper on this side. On getting to the end of the zipper, I would reverse to stitch it properly so it doesn't get loosed. Alright, after this has been done, This is how the zipper would be on this side. The next step is to stitch the other side of the zipper on the smaller side of the front piece. Now I adjusted the smaller side of the front piece back to its original position, then used my fingers to clip one side of the zipper to the slit allowance on this smaller piece. Holding this together, I went ahead to turn the fabric to the bottom. At this stage, just make sure that the zipper is equal before stitching. So I'm going to adjust it to the top of the zipper here. You can see that everything is flat and equal. Now I would open the zipper a bit so the zipper head doesn't affect the first stitching on this side. Now I went ahead to stitch the edges of the zipper. Alright, so I'm done stitching. The next step is to fold the slit opening that is left at the bottom. So now from this side, I'll fold the slit half inch in and further fold it by half inch to stitch the edges. On getting to where the zipper started, I went in by 1 inch to stitch. Now the next step is to stitch this other side of the slit as well. So this is how easy it is to attach the zipper on the slit opening. Now I took the front piece to my sewing machine to make a gathered stitch on the waistline. After you've made the gathers, you need to be sure that the gathers on the waistline will fit your waist circumference. And since this is for just the front piece alone, I would have to divide my actual waist circumference by 2. My actual waist circumference by 2 is 14 inches. But because of the sewing allowance, I would make sure that this gathers is 15 inches. Since the waistline is on 15 inches now, I took it to the sewing machine to stitch directly on the gathers in order to tighten the gathers so it doesn't lose. So the front piece of my skirt is ready. I'll keep this aside. Alright, so this is the back piece of my skirt. So I folded it into 2 equally. Because of the zipper allowance at the center back, I would be slitting the fold. Now to mark the zipper opening allowance, I placed my tape from the top of the waistline to mark 6 inches. Now from this point, I would make a straight stitch vertically downwards to the bottom of the skirt. After stitching, you'd have the zipper opening on this side. So at this point, I would open up the fold, and the next step is to make a gathered stitch on the waistline on this side and on this side separately. Now I'm adjusting the thread to form the gathers on the waistline. To know the width you need for these gathers on the back piece, I would take the measurements of the waist circumference on the front piece. So this is 15 inches, and since the back piece is separated into 2 due to the zipper allowance, I will divide that 15 inches by 2. Now I have 7.5 inches, and because there'll be zipper allowance on this side, I added extra 1 inch to that 7.5 inches, which made it 8.5 inches. So the width on this side should be 8.5 inches. Now I'm also going to gather the waistline on this other side, making sure that the width is also 8.5 inches on the waistline. All right, so this is 8.5 inches as well. Now I took this to the sewing machine to make a straight stitch to secure the gathers. To make the pockets, I folded this fabric into four so I can have four pieces of the pocket. The pocket opening is 7 inches, so I marked it on this side. And then I inserted my hand into the pocket opening to spread out my fingers and traced out the pocket. Now I'll trim out the pockets following the direction of the chalk. So I have four pieces of this pocket. The next step is to attach the pocket to the skirt. So this is the front piece of my skirt. On this side, I marked 3 inches from the waistline. Now I placed one of the pockets from that point I marked to stitch the edges by ½ inch. On this other side, I'll also mark 3 inches from the waistline to place the second pocket from that point to stitch the edges by ½ inch. So this is the back piece of the skirt. From the waistline on this side, I marked 3 inches as well, then placed the third pocket on this point to stitch the edge by ½ inch. And on this other side, I marked 3 inches from the waistline as well to place the fourth pocket from that point to stitch by ½ inch. After stitching the pockets, the next step is to place the back piece of the skirt on the front piece of the skirt to stitch the sides by 1 inch. You're pulling on my walls down. I've never been exposed like this before. I'm good at shutting you out. I've always had a way of keeping close. Beating, hiding, I've been calling out your name from the darkness, thinking it's too late. Now I stitched this other side of the skirt by 1 inch as well. To see the tutorial on how I made the wrap top I wore on this skirt, click this link at the top of your screen. I've never been exposed like this before. I'm good at shutting you out. After stitching the sides of the skirt, I turned the skirt to the right side of the fabric. So these are the side pockets on the skirt. So to make the waistband, you need to know the waist circumference on this skirt with the sewing allowance included. So the waist circumference of the skirt with the sewing allowance included is 30 inches. My actual waist circumference is 28 inches. That simply means I still have like 2 inches extra, which is for the zipper allowance. So that's fine. For the waistband, I placed a gum stay on the wrong side. The width of the waistband is 5 inches. I took the waistband to the ironing board to fold the waistband into two equally. After folding the waistband into two equally, I opened it up to fold one of the edges on this side by ½ inch. So the width of the waistband should be the same as the waist circumference of the skirt. The waist circumference of the skirt was measured as 30 inches with the zipper allowance included. But for my waistband, I have it as 31. So it's better for the waistband to be excess so you can easily trim it out. So these edges of the waistband that wasn't folded would be placed on the wrong side of the waistline. Now I took this to the sewing machine to stitch by ½ inch. Alright guys, now I would fold the waistband into two equally. Then take this to the sewing machine to stitch the edges of the waistband on this side so that it covers the seam on the waistline. After the waistband has been properly secured, I stitched the zipper on the zipper allowance on the center back of the skirt. Now the final step is to secure the hem of the skirt by folding it in half inch and further folding it in by half inch all through. Alright guys, this is the final outcome of my skirt. It's very beautiful. You should give it a try, and if you are new to my channel, please subscribe, share and like my tutorial, and also put on your notification bell so you'll be the first to be notified when I upload new tutorials. Thank you for watching to the very end, and bye for now. See you in my next tutorial.